Meantime, for discussion, New York Post columnist John Levine and legal eagle Hans von Spakovsky join us now. John, I'm going to go ahead and start with you because we were having this conversation the other night. A lot of people want to know exactly what did happen at Twitter with respect to suppressing that story. You had that senior executive saying, well, I didn't really want to suppress it. I'm wondering if part of what Elon's going to drop here is that there were other people that said, don't suppress it, put it out there.
Right. I mean, I can also confirm I've been refreshing my phone in the pod here in the Fox News building, every single second. And so far, it hasn't dropped yet. There's a lot of unanswered questions about what went on here. We know that after the Post published the revelations on Hunter Biden hard drive, they were suppressed. You weren't allowed to share them. People who were sharing them were getting suspended temporarily unless they deleted the tweets. And we really don't know a lot about the back end of this process. Who was behind the decision to do this? Who are the voices involved? What pressures was Twitter facing? I personally really want to see the Slack messages that were going on in the company at that time. I want to see the emails that were getting sent back and forth.
Yeah.
I want to see if the U.S. government was sending any emails or in communication with Twitter leaders at this time. There's a lot of very important unanswered questions.
That's a great point, and I want to see that as well. But I think also, Hans, part of the issue here, we played a clip last night of Senator Warren talking about Elon Musk, and she was saying, well, I don't think one person, I'm paraphrasing, should go into a dark room and decide, what kind of conversations people could have. That's with respect to Musk, but she is not necessarily saying that was a problem if and when Jack Dorsey was doing it. So if there's pressure from the top with the suppression of this story from Dorsey, I would find that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, she's really showing what a hypocrite she is because, as you said, she wasn't worried about this before. Look, I would also like to know not just whether there were communications with the government, but I'd like to know were there communications with the Biden campaign or members of the Biden family. It's hard to believe that there was any motive other than to interfere with the election and suppress a story that might have affected the election when you consider the fact that why would they be suppressing a story from a major newspaper like the New York Post?
Right.
It's one of the main newspapers in the country. Twitter doesn't have reporters on staff and others to check out the credibility of stories. They routinely have tweets about stories, newspaper columns, and others from every major newspaper in the country, and yet they don't suppress those stories normally. Why would they do it from the New York Post? There could be no motive other than politics.
And it was a developing story that was very clear. But,
yes.
John, it was a story that would have impacted 1 in 5 Biden voters say that they might not have voted for him had they had more information about this and how it unfolded in those days leading up to the election. That is very significant.
Right. I mean, I think it's not an overstatement to say this was probably the most important story of the 2020 election, and there was a deliberate effort to keep the American people in the dark, to keep people ignorant of it, because people realized that it would influence votes, and subsequent polling after the election has showed that a critical number of Americans would have voted differently had they been aware of all the facts on the hard drive and what Hunter and potentially Joe Biden were up to.
Right, and that potential link is really crucial. We'll see if we get any more information on that as this develops as well. But Hans, I want to come back to you because when it comes to Hunter Biden and it comes to the business dealings that he did overseas, if there is that linkage between him and the president, and there are so many geopolitical problems right now, many people say our president could be compromised. Voters absolutely had to have access to that information. And so part of what Elon Musk wanted to do here was step up to the plate, increase transparency, and restore confidence in this company. I mean, we don't know exactly what he's going to drop tonight, but depending on what these documents say, do you think that it does restore trust within the public, within Twitter? Do you think it attracts more people towards the company?
Oh, yes. I mean, transparency is fundamental if you're running a company like this. But more importantly is ending the censorship that Twitter was engaging in. Elon Musk has come out and said he's in favor of the First Amendment, and he's shown that in the moves that he has made. What is shocking to me is how so many on the progressive left, like Senator Warren, apparently think censorship should be conducted. It's as if they don't understand the way the First Amendment works, and they clearly want to chill any and all speech of anyone who disagrees with them on
Yeah.
any issue.
Well, I think they understand the First Amendment, but I think they look the other way when the censorship works in their favor. That's the way it has seemed so far. Gentlemen, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. And of course, as soon as we get more information on what Elon is going to give us, we will bring it to our viewers.